Do you want to know the top 10 tax deductions for artists, designers, and photographers? Then come on over. I will be talking to you today about the best tax breaks for creative professionals. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous if you're to ask me. And if you are doing as great as I am, grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. In today's conversation, I want to talk to you about the top 10 tax deductions for artists, designers, and photographers. Now, if you are a professional artist, there are many deductions you can take to reduce your taxable income for the year and thereby, guess what? Reduce your taxes. And the cool thing here is that such deductions are quite valuable. I mean, for example, if you are in the 25% tax bracket, each $100 in deductions saves you $25 in income tax. If you're on the 22% tax bracket, it is $22 income tax savings. And it will also usually save you about $15 in self-employment taxes as well. So professional artists are usually independent contractors. They're not employees. Very important distinction. So a self-employed artist may deduct any expense that is directly related to the art activity, ordinary and necessary, and not lavish or extravagant under the circumstances. So it's very important. The IRS has rules about hobbyists versus professionals. So basically, the IRS wants to know if the taxpayer intends to make a profit as opposed to just make art. So artists are in a business as soon as they earn money from their work in the form of sales or grants or fees if they give a public demonstration. So you got to understand the key word here is money. Some sort of transaction is required. If there is no money, guess what? There is no business. And there are 9 criteria that the IRS applies in order to separate the pros from the mere dabblers. So is the activity carried on in a business-like manner? Does the artist intend to make the artistic activity profitable? Does the individual depend in full or in part from income derived from the artistic work? Very important. Are business losses to be expected? Or are they due to circumstances beyond the artist's control? Are business plans changed to improve profitability? Does the artist have the knowledge to make the activity profitable? You got to have knowledge, right? Has the artist been successful in previous professional activities? Does the activity generate a profit in some years? And if so, how much of one? Will the artist make a profit in the future? So the artist will need to answer at least a few. You have to answer at least yes to 3 or 4 or 5, not every question, in order to be legally recognized as a business in the eyes of the IRS. And one thing I want you to really pay attention to is there are a few things you can do to show the IRS you are serious and legit, and that you're not treating your art as a hobby. So things like, and again, if you can demonstrate to the IRS that this is indeed a legit business, then you can write off all the expenses that you incur during the year. And so, for example, creating a business plan that shows the IRS that you have some planning ahead, you have some financial analysis, some ratio analysis, that you're thinking about constantly actually upping your game. That is kind of cool. So if for example you're applying for a bank loan, it has to be a business loan, not a personal loan. You need to have a bank account under the business name, right? And a business plan is kind of cool because it's a great document that shows not only the present, how things work in the current environment, but how things might work for you in the future. This is where you actually talk about your vision. And the IRS does not define what makes an artist a professional, but certain elements help in the determination of whether or not there is a serious intent on earning a profit. Remember, money is the key word. No money, no business. All right. So, for example, having a BFA is something, but having an MFA is much more, right? MFA stands for Master of Fine Art, and BFA, Bachelor of Fine Art. All right. So, if you have a website, for example, especially if the website is set up for making sales, as is having a separate business credit card and business bank account, using the service of a lawyer or an accountant in setting up or running your business shows that you are serious. Belonging to an artist organization, for example, subscribing to an industry related magazine, or going to professional conferences is kind of helpful too, because in the end, all this constellation of activities and processes paints a great picture, paints a picture of you doing everything you can to be on top of the market. And this shows that you have a business intent. All right, let's go into the nitty gritty here. The top 10 tax deductions for artists, designers, and photographers. Number one, travel and entertainment. So you have business travel and you have local travel expenses. Business travel. So artists often travel out of town or even out of the country to work or show their art, right? So things like cabs, subways, buses, you may deduct all reasonable expenses you incur when doing so. These expenses, though, include airfare or other transportation costs and hotel and other lodging expenses. But you may only deduct 50% of the cost of meals when you travel for your art business. And if you plan things right, guess what? You can even mix pleasure and business and still get a deduction. Local travel expenses. So local travel may include trips to galleries, art classes, workshops, or to even pick up supplies. You may deduct trips by car or public transportation, and if you like record keeping, you can keep track of all your car expenses to figure out your annual deduction. And the thing here is, if you would rather not keep track of how much you spend on gas, repairs, car washes, and so forth, the IRS has something for you. You can use the standard mileage rate. So when you use the standard rate, you only need to keep track of how many miles you drive for business, not how much you spend on your car. So for business use of a car, van, pickup, truck, or panel truck, the rate for 2021 will be 56 cents per mile, and the rate for 2020 is actually 57.5 cents. And this is way down from 58 cents per mile in 2019. Okay, and let me first quickly talk about meal expense. Personal meal expense. The days of the deductible three martini lunch are pretty much at an end. So if you want to deduct the cost of a meal in a restaurant today, you need to have a serious business discussion before, during, or soon after the event. Very important, folks. Besides, you may only deduct 50%, as I said earlier, of your business meal, the cost of the business meal. For example, you can deduct 50% of the cost of a meal you have with a gallery owner to discuss displaying your work. And since 2018, you may not deduct entertainment expenses, for example, treating an art critic to theater tickets. It doesn't work anymore. Number two. Number one was travel and entertainment. Number two, professional, legal, and courier fees. So courier fees are kind of cool. So you have agent fees. If you have an agent, you may deduct all of the fees he or she charges. Tax preparation fees, legal fees. You can deduct fees that you pay to attorneys, accountants, consultants, and other professionals if the fees are paid for work related to your art business. Messengers, private mail carriers, and postage. Postage is kind of cool too. Number three, studio expenses. So let's say if you have an art studio in your home that you use exclusively for your art business, you may be able to deduct the cost using the home office deduction. Be very careful though, because the IRS is very adamant, it's very strict when it comes to the guidelines here. So you want to really separate your home, the spot you have in your home where you conduct business. You want to separate that from the rest of the house. And the home office deduction is particularly valuable if you are a renter, because it enables you to deduct a portion of your monthly rent, a sizable expense that is ordinarily not deductible. And the rent and utilities paid for an outside studio are fully deductible business expenses. So I'm talking here about things like studio or home office rent, gas and electric, internet, telephone. That those all of those are deductible. All right, it's very important to understand. Now, number four, we have gallery rentals. Now, art gallery rents or membership costs are fully deductible. The depending upon your situation, depending upon your location and situation, gallery rentals can actually increase your operational cost. For example, if you are an up and coming artist and your strategy is to appear in as many galleries as possible, then your gallery rentals will go up. Conversely, if you are an established painter, you're an established artist, and you really don't need to promote yourself anymore because everybody knows you, then your gallery rentals might go down in terms of cost. So it's all about molding your strategy, molding your tax deduction around your operational expenses. So gallery rentals are also very important. And one thing that we have seen lately is that some artists have chosen nowadays with the COVID-19 pandemic, have chosen to actually expose their arts on online galleries. So they're paying a hosting fee to the website to host them, to actually expose their art, and the fees there, those rental fees are also deductible. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. We are still having a conversation about the top 10 tax deductions for artists, designers, and photographers. Number 5, long-term property. So professional artists often purchase tangible personal property that lasts for more than 1 year, right? For example, you have computers, presses, cameras, and video equipment. You have welding equipment, you have cell phones and art books, as well as software. So the full cost of fixed property can usually be deductible in a single year using 100% bonus depreciation in effect through December 31st, 2022. So Section 179 expensing, or what they call the de minimis safe harbor, applicable to property that costs $2,500 or less. This is also another element that you can actually you can take advantage of. We actually have devoted an entire show to Section 179 expensing. You might want to double check that. So basically, the advantage here is that you are getting a big deduction in a single year rather than spreading it out over several years through annual depreciation deductions. Number 6, supplies. So you have art supplies and office supplies. So a professional artist is in the business of selling art, right? We all know that. So your artwork is inventory, just like a bookstore's books are inventory. Really, nothing changes here. So you can deduct the cost of creating your artwork, such as the cost of, say, frames or paints or canvas, only for the artwork you sell during the year. And these expenses are part of your cost of goods sold, what the IRS calls cost of goods sold. And any remaining unsold artwork is inventory whose cost cannot be deducted. And what about office supplies? You have supplies that you purchase for your art business that you use up in less than 1 year. Of course, this includes all your studio supplies, and they also include things like stationery and postage. Number 7, education and networking. So I just want you to know right now that art classes and lessons are deductible. You can deduct the cost of art magazines, journals, newsletters, and other subscriptions useful for your art business. If you pay to belong to museums, professional artist societies, or other organizations for artists, then you can actually deduct them. Books, magazines, reference materials, all those things are deductible. Cultural events, museum entrance fees, all those are deductible. Number 8, we have promotional expenses. So fees to enter the juried art shows are fully deductible. And the basic rule of thumb here is that virtually everything you spend money on to promote yourself as an artist is deductible, including advertising and listings and art publications, photos, brochures, videos, and websites, including internet connection cost. Remember, we live in a digital world, and internet is a necessary and regular income expense. You can also deduct anything you spend on advertising, online promotion, right? If you have a Facebook, somebody helping you with your social media presence, a social media marketer, you can deduct that. Business gifts, copying and printing, film and processing, framing also is fully deductible. All right. Number 9, we have insurance. Now, when it comes to insurance, you have three types of insurance. When it comes to the tax deductions that an artist, designer, or a photographer can actually write off. So first, you have health insurance. So self-employed people, including artists, are allowed to deduct 100% of their health insurance premiums from their income taxes. So that's the first type of insurance. Second type of insurance, a homeowner's insurance. So if you have a home office, you may deduct a portion of your home office insurance. Make sure, again, when it comes to home office deductions, make sure you have proper proof and you are able to segregate the portion of the house that you allocate to business from the rest of the house. Because God forbid you are audited, you want to be sure that you can actually substantiate, you can prove to the IRS that this spot, your office, the spot you call your office, is indeed used for business work. Third kind of insurance category you can deduct as an artist is business insurance, right? You can also deduct that, and it could be everything from malpractice insurance, errors and omission, to depending upon the size of your operation. If you have a staff, if you're paying for your staff's health insurance, or you're actually you have professional liability insurance, whatever it is, you can deduct that. Number 10, we have something called pass-through deduction. So the vast majority of professional artists, they operate as a pass-through business. Now, what is that? A pass-through is simply any business in which the profits are taxed on the owner's individual tax return at his or her individual tax rates. And because most artists, the majority of artists, are sole proprietors, in other words, this is a one owner business in which the owner personally owns all the business assets. Because of that, a few have formed, because of that, we see the pass-through taxation happening a lot with artists. Now, a few artists are big enough to have formed limited liability companies, LLCs, as corporations, or are even members of partnerships. And all such artists are operating pass-through businesses. So it doesn't matter if you're LLC or an S corp or your sole proprietorship, you're still operating as a pass-through. And something happened something very interesting happened in 2017, and a piece of legislation called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That piece of legislation had a pivotal impact on business deductions, tax deductions. For example, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act established a brand new deduction that allows owners of pass-through deductions, including artists, to deduct an amount equal to up to 20% of their net income from the business. This is in addition to all their other art business deductions. So the pass-through deduction is a personal deduction pass-through owners can take on their returns, whether or not they itemize. So when you file your 1040, you can take that. It is an above the line deduction. So if you earn, say, $50,000 in profit from your art business and qualify for the pass-through deduction, you may deduct $10,000. That's $50,000 times 20%. However, you are entitled to the full 20% pass-through deduction only if your taxable income from all sources after deductions is less than $315,000 if married, filing jointly, or $157,500 if single. The deduction is phased out if your income exceeds this limit. And the thing here is that It disappears entirely for marrieds filing jointly whose income exceeds $415,000 and for singles whose income exceeds $207,500. Okay, and this deduction began on January 1st, 2018, and is scheduled to last through December 31st, 2025. All right, folks, this was it for today's conversation. I was talking to you about the top 10 tax deductions for artists, designers, and photographers. Number 1, travel and entertainment. Number 2, professional, legal, and courier fees. Number 3, studio expenses. Number 4, gallery rentals. Number 5, long-term property. Number 6, supplies. Number 7, education and networking. Number 8, promotional expenses. Number 9, insurance. And number 10, pass-through deduction. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I will see you next time, but until then, remember, stay marvelous.